Got it.
Welcome to Karen's Conversations, number 31. Now, I've been a bit slack. It's been quite a while since I've done one of these, and lots of other things happening this side of the world. But anyway, I'm going to make up for it today, because Karen's Conversations number 31 is with the wonderful Lena Ross. Now, I'm not going to say any more. A lot of you may know Lena. But for those who don't, I'm going to throw to Lena to introduce herself. Welcome to Karen's Conversations.
Thank you, Karen, for having me. And I love number 31 because it's the opposite of 13. So I'm liking the number and the sequence. So I'm a change consultant who's been working for myself for 2 years and set up a practice called Change Hacks. And I would probably describe myself as someone who draws on the practices of neuroscience, design thinking, future of work, agile, and agile is often called new ways of working now anyway. So that's the space where most of my work is taking me, and it's the area that I really enjoy working in. So I guess the future and where it's going. And I say to people, the future is now anyway. So it's quite an exciting space to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And just tell us a bit about Change Hacks. That's an interesting name for your business.
Yeah, it is. I almost came, first of all, my book was going to be called Change Hacks. And then I thought, why not just call my business Change Hacks and sort out the book later? Because as I was doing a lot of things to get cut through, I was increasingly calling them hacks and using the word hacks in a really positive way rather than doing something illegal or naughty. Do you know what I mean? It was it's actually to get cut through in a good way. And then I started calling them change hacks. So it kind of started and then it stuck, and then I liked the word. So I liked the way it just rolled off my tongue. So change hacks it was, with a hashtag in front. Just
that's right.
Really contemporary look. So it's a contemporary change.
Yeah. I love it because it really is out there, and it makes people sort of, not look twice but think twice, because it's different. Yeah. And I like the hashtag at the beginning. So really happy to have you on this conversation, Lena. I've been looking forward to this, and I love some of the stuff that you're doing, and we'll talk about the book in a while. But you recently blogged about the fact that we need to change the language we're using around organizational change. So tell us what you mean about changing the language.
Yeah, so language is interesting from two perspectives. The first perspective, because I like neuroscience and how language can really prime people to think, has always been an interest. And so I find the language we use can really have an influence on the conversation and where the conversation goes and people's mindsets. So that's always been at the back of my mind. But probably more at the forefront is, because change is changing, and I know that you're writing really good stuff about this and presenting really good stuff about this as well, is, we're challenging traditional models around change, and those traditional models, like, words like refreezing and things like that, have lost their relevance or are quickly losing their relevance. And I was starting to get really worried about things like fatigue and change fatigue, change resistance, and change practitioners use these words. I think they're using them without understanding the impact they may have, because they've been in the vernacular for so long. And they're really positioning change as a negative thing. Mm. And if you think about the change we absorb in our personal and professional lives in an incremental way, like the way we've adopted smartphones and things that we really get a buzz out of, change isn't that. There's more to being resistant. There's a range of responses. Resistance is just one of many, and if I hear the word fatigue, I get tired anyway. It's priming me for a state that I don't even want to be in. So that's where I guess my thinking came from. And I thought maybe it's time that we stop and think about the words we're using, because we have a lot of influence without realizing that we do in our conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more. And I think there's a lot of conversations going on social channels around all this stuff. And I've got myself in a bit of hot water at times as well. But it's, I think language is so important, because you're right. And someone wrote an article recently, and I can't remember, a little while ago, can't remember who it was, who listed all the language that we use around change, and change is hard, and change fatigue, and resistance to change, and then said, really, if that's the way we're going to talk about it, we might as well just give up, because we're already saying we're going to fail. And it's like we're making constant excuses for things not going the way we want by going, oh, you know, change is hard and people resist change. And yeah, one of the things I've been saying is that, yeah, okay, there is resistance. But, you know, when you think about it in terms of people changing, we've been changing since the day we came out of the womb and adopting to different environments and different challenges. And we took it on to where we are today. So, yeah.
I mean, senior leaders are still using that in a lot of their, you know, town halls and addresses and things like that. You know, like we know change is hard. And I think I saw something in the paper only this week. Anna Bligh said, you know, something about change fatigue and governments and banks were experiencing change fatigue. And I'm thinking, if the language is out there, and I think it is being used without a great deal of thought about what it means and the state that it's, the mindsets that it's influencing.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the practitioners as well, this is one of the things that I'm trying to not grapple with, it's the wrong word, but I think we've got a lot of practitioners out there with good intent, but they're being fed this language. And I'm not going to mention frameworks and methodologies, but you know, and the likes of yourselves and yourself and, you know, Jen Fram and myself saying, well, we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Some of this stuff that we're using is still relevant, but we need to adapt it. And that needs, to me, a different mindset that we're not equipping these people with. And they're saying, you've given me a toolkit that's based on unfreeze, transition, refreeze. And now, and you've told me about change resistant and reinforcement and grief cycles and all these things. And they're going, well, now I'm not sure how to use it because it doesn't, the jigsaw doesn't fit together anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's lost. I think it's lost relevance. And like, I like what you said about not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because we have so many tools available, but I think it's now about which tools, it's actually right sizing those tools and picking aspects of tools that are still working really well, and then discarding the ones that we think are less relevant. And that's a mindset shift for a lot of practitioners and people in general who are used to things that have served them so well for so long.
Yeah, and you know, I don't think we can make the assumption that every practitioner is there, you know, ready for that shift. You know, I always think it's a bit ironic. We talk about, you know, change practitioners having to change, and they're really, do I have to?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Diversity. Yeah.
That's right. So it is you know, I've talked about this as well as you about, you know, the new world that we're living in, and a lot of people sort of look at me a bit blank because they're not really feeling it yet. But I'm saying that if you're not feeling it today, you're certainly going to start feeling it tomorrow. And you know, we're talking about having to become more agile. So tell us about, you talk about Agile Change, and again we'll talk about the book. What does, I love the way you explain this in the book actually. So want to share what you mean by agile?
With the little A and big A, is that what you mean? Yeah. Yeah. So I tried a few different ways to explain agile, and you know, the way using the big A and little a is really helpful, I have found, even though some agile purists don't like it. And I understand why they don't like it, because there's things that the Agile Manifesto does have the right principle. It has the agile principles in it that we want to adopt. But I have found that if I draw out software development agile with big A, and then being agile, as in the word in the dictionary, agile, with little a, it really helps the leaders understand their responsibility. If they see agile as software development only, I find that they feel they can abdicate that whole responsibility of organizational agility and, you know, tick the box with a Scrum Master and a couple of agile projects. So I have found that explanation has helped get the buy-in and understanding that everyone's responsible for this. If you want organizational agility, this is what it looks like. You've got to not just do agile, but you've got to be agile with that little a. And interestingly, I remember one of the CEOs saying to me, "Oh, okay, I get it. So big A is a subset of little a now. That's interesting." So it's really cool listening to people and the way they process it and the way they get that too. So I think it's, you know, for an organization, it means, are your individuals agile? Are your teams agile? And then how agile is the organization, and taking that holistic view as well. and not just abdicating it to software development and Scrum Masters and project methodology.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when we look at the agile principles about, getting things done over than perfection and, and people first. I mean, such an alignment with organizational change. It should be just a morph, if you like, when OCM practitioners and leaders see those principles, they should be going, well, absolutely.
And when I say little a agile, that's not at all intended to diminish, the intent of the manifesto, because the manifesto's actually got it. The manifesto's got it all, but it's often associated with software development. So it's trying to take the big A out of agile and really people understanding what it means across the board.
Yeah, and I find myself so many times, and I did this on a conversation yesterday, and people were talking about, and they weren't talking about software development, they're still talking about, doing agile. And I went, agile is a mindset. It's not a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know.
You talk about doing Scrum and ways to become more agile, but it's a mindset. And it frustrates me that we've taken, we're doing this now, and it's not a thing that you can actually do. It's
that's right. Yeah. That's what I say: be and do. So that
Yeah. Interesting. So I was touching on before the new world and how things are getting faster, and we use the term, and I use it. Some people raise their eyebrows and go, "Oh, it's so overused." But VUCA.
I use VUCA a lot.
And I think it explains quite easily the sort of world that if we're not feeling it now, we feel it soon, which is volatile, uncertain, absolutely complex and ambiguous. So if that's the world that we're now faced with, what are the key things that you think the change management leaders or practitioners need to do?
I use a quote from a book called Pause by Nancy Gruhl-Martin, which really resonated with me. And she says in this book, and I relate this to the role that change practitioners have had for a long time, and the thing that we're typically the guardians of, which is helping people become comfortable with change. But her quote says, "I'm not here to help you be comfortable with change. I'm here to help you be comfortable with discomfort." And that's a real shift. And it's a shift. It requires a shift, I think, in our capability too, as well as our mindset. And again, then how we plan to deliver the change and talk about it and have those conversations. And again, that's taking us, Karen, I think, to that thing that I talk about a lot, which is, it means we've got to be less anchored to those processes that did serve us well for so long. Some of them are still useful, but some are outdated. So it's understanding that we need to now start communicating that the change, to feel discomfort, is okay. Whereas I think the framing of a lot of the change communication, the change language has been a little bit different. So now it's saying we are, and I find talking about VUCA is very helpful with leaders and change practitioners, because it's saying this is the environment we're in. So it kind of gives me a good frame for why we need to have different capability sets now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some things don't fit in that world anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
And the other thing I say to them is you have the power to influence even if you don't have that formal authority or that formal power. So it's influencing with authority. So because of VUCA, let's use it to our advantage, because power is shifting in this VUCA world. And there's this, concept of new power, old power. So again, this language and role modeling and using things like Yammer and enterprise social networking. Let's take advantage of this world and role model what we want to see, because I think this is a real opportunity for change leaders and change practitioners now too to do that.
Absolutely. And I think there's so much that as change leaders and practitioners that we can leverage, you mentioned some of the enterprise tools like Yammer and Slack and Jive and that we can actually use to communicate, collaborate and get things done. So in that VUCA world, what are some of the challenges that we're being faced with?
And look, I've been through this myself. I'm only human too. Is that comfort with ambiguity? Being comfortable with failure, but being comfortable with failure requires a climate of psychological safety. So this is back over to the leaders who themselves have got a fear of failure. I mean, we've come we've come from a place, all of us, where we're used to managers saying to us, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. This is what a success look like. You know, if you think about the language that we've all been brought up with in most of our careers and rewarded for, it's, you know, it's success, it's come to me with solutions. Whereas now, you know, if we think about design thinking, it's about really defining the problem and getting people involved early in co-creation before we assume that we know those solutions and we deliver these solutions which may not be the right fit. So that it's that shift, and it's that comfort with failure, as long as we're not doing anything unethical or illegal, to create a climate where it's okay to mess up. Because when you mess up, let's create that climate where we do something like a retrospective and talk about why and what we've learned from it. But that is a massive mindset shift, and not just the mindset. I think you need the organisation to start rewarding those types of things. You need everything lined up. You need to recruit for that. You need to reward it. Most important, the leaders need to model it. It's okay to say, look, it's okay if you fail, we'll be fine with that. But, you know, they're not taking any risks either, or being seen to reward, like, you know, we messed up. What can we take from that, and not do that again next time? So that we'll fail fast. So that's the world. That's the world we're in, and they're the challenges, I think, for organisations, change practitioners, and particularly leaders. Is how can we create that environment of psychological safety so people can do these things, which and it's the only way we can build that capability in a VUCA world.
Yeah. And it's such a big change. You just, as you start to look at it and you start to say, okay, we're going to allow people to, you know, we're going to decentralize decision making. We're going to let people, because we've got to, if we're going to respond quickly in a volatile world, we can't have decisions going up a chain of command to come down again because the world's moved on. So we've got to get people who, you know, feel that they are able to make decisions. And if they get it wrong, that's okay. We'll learn from it. And that in itself is such a mindset change for the whole of the organisation, for the workforce, the leaders, and it's a big job. Yeah,
it is a big job, and it's and it probably starts with the leaders, really. But I always say to change practitioners, don't let that paralyze you. Still leverage that power that we do have, where we can influence through those other ways that I was talking about, which was the language and role modelling and things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm also feeling, I don't know if you're feeling the same, I'm feeling a bit of a shift. A lot of organisations have sort of given lip service to organisational change. Some, you know, have done it well, some say giving it lip service. But because the world they're working in, the business world is fundamentally changing, I'm feeling a bit of a shift where they're sort of looking to the OCM leads and practitioners now and going, we really do actually need your help.
Yeah. And I'm finding that, and with the clients I'm working with, I'm finding an interesting shift. First, I saw a big wave of a shift to human-centered design, which was great as the customer obsession thing is becoming really big. And now I'm slowly seeing they're understanding and seeing the connection between the employee experience and the customer experience, and looking, and that's a good thing, I think, for change practitioners, because they do look to us as the people specialists and the behavioural specialists in that. So that's a great opportunity. Now, this is why this VUCA world is presenting so many opportunities as well as challenges. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's exciting times, and it is. So how do we make organizational change truly agile?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. So when I talk about it, I talk about guiding principles, because the challenge that I have is a lot of people say, okay, so what's the methodology for agile? And it's a little bit like anti-agile. I can't give you a one way to do this. So it's often the conversation often starts like that. And I say to people, look, and I use a metaphor, you know, like a sushi train, like those restaurants that have the little sushi trains that go around, and they present you with like a range of things, and you just have to pick what you feel like eating on the day. And I say to people, the first thing is you really need to right size your change effort and make sure that you're visible. And you may need to use agile principles, behaviors or mindsets on projects that aren't necessarily agile as well. That's the other thing. OCM change can be agile without necessarily waiting for someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hello, change person, you're on an agile project now." I'm using agile principles all the time, and no one has told me I'm on an agile piece of work.
Yeah.
So they're the guiding principles. That you've got this sushi train, and you've got all these tools, the ones that have served you well for years and years and years, and all these new ones coming up, and new opportunities to try things. And you need to pick off that sushi train what's going to work for that particular piece of work to deliver, and to deliver without, this is the lean approach now, to deliver exactly what's the right size for that, without worrying about. Without having to tick boxes and deliver a range of deliverables and artifacts and things like that. And I say to people, and support each other as peers and experiment bravely. If you want to experiment with something and say, I want to try doing this piece of work minus these 5 deliverables that we've always used, but I'd like to try using Yammer as the main form of communication for this particular piece. So again, that's that psychological safety, isn't it? Let's try it. If it doesn't work, let's have a conversation about it. We'll come up with something better. So that to me is agile change. And it's, again, you can probably hear me now talking about, have that agile mindset and approach when you're doing it, role model it, manage expectations with your stakeholders. I find myself saying to stakeholders a lot now, I'm not coming to you with a 60-page pack. I'm coming to you with a drawing on a flip chart, and we're going to co-create this, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah.
So it's managing expectations, experimenting bravely, right-sizing it, and don't look for that, that panacea that's the one way, same way, because it's not. I don't think that's the way forward anymore.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm having the same conversations about, making OCM more nimble, faster. Yes. And let's try and steer away from the word agile. A number of times I've looked on the thesaurus to see what can I say instead of agile, because people hear it and go, agile software development. I'm saying, well,
adaptive change delivery, because sometimes I get, it depends which client you're with and what organization, because I get worried if I use the word agile, they may anchor it to something else. So I'm finding, I know what you mean. I've looked up the thesaurus too and been down the same path. But adaptive change delivery is something I'm using a lot as well. So if you think of it, if there's other ideas out there, I'm keen to hear about it.
Yeah, no, I like the adaptive change, because one of the things I'm saying is to people is, okay, rather than that 50-page, doesn't matter whether it's waterfall, agile, hybrid, or whatever, but rather than that 50-page change management, let's say the comms plan, that no one's ever going to read, why not have a plan on a page that everyone will immediately give you feedback and will start to help you do your job? In fact, sometimes if it's visible and simple and people can understand it, they'll actually do your job for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because they'll say, actually, Karen, you thought you were going to engage this people in this way. Actually, I used to be their team leader, and they really prefer to be engaged this way. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And I only had this conversation with a group yesterday in a workshop, and it was to make sure that you get some real estate on the visual management board. And if there is no visual management board, find some real estate and make one up yourself. You don't have to wait for someone else to do stuff, or you don't have to wait for this agile thing to happen. You can create that momentum yourself. And the two things I always like to get up on a visual management board is this change on a page. And as you said, get the people to walk past, more people that walk past and have a look and then start scratching their heads and going, oh, something here's not right. Great. And then the other thing I try and put up there is just a traffic light high level impact assessment, because I find that opens up really good conversations. And they're both visual documents, 2 pages. 2 pages helps me do my job. And quite often then take them off the wall if I go to a meeting, and take them in with me and change them and then fix them up. And in a way they don't even look so perfect, which in a way invites a lot more dialogue.
Yeah, it looks like they're being used.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
They're a bit dog-eared, which means, we're using them, absolutely, and we're improving them.
A couple of things are crossed out. Well, that's okay. Yeah.
That's right, and I think it's very powerful ways that, you know, again, it's going back to saying we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We've always done those sort of things, like have plans and impact assessments, but don't bury them in a 30-page document. Pull them out, stick them up, and let people, you know, help you with that impact assessment as well. Yeah. And I often talk about, I show my age because I said, you know, it's the new age of fuzzy felt is back. You know?
I love it. No, I love it. All those technical things are a lot really powerful. I totally agree. And look, I find that also is a way of work. It's working out loud. It's showing your work. Your work is visible all the time. If it's inviting conversations, it's often inviting conversations that may have never been had.
Yeah,
absolutely. You don't have to have a formal meeting to have a conversation.
No.
Be the person that walks past and looks at your wall. I mean, I find even when I'm on client site, I have my own personal Kanban at my desk. If I have a desk, if I don't, I put it up at my flexi desk. But people often come up and go, "Oh, is that what you're working on?"
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, I know someone who can help you with that. So this is all agile new ways of working.
Yeah, it's inviting that collaboration, isn't it? You can only invite collaboration if it's what you're doing is visible or you're working out loud. Yeah. So, Lena, do you think there's any good case studies of organisations that are doing, you know, agile change well, or any stories that you can share without naming names?
I knew you'd ask me this. This is a good question, and it's a bloody hard question as well. I see pockets of it working. I personally haven't been in an organisation where it's across the business. Where I've seen the bits that I'm talking about working well are definitely where the leaders are role modelling the behaviours. I worked with a client last year. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, so I'll just blow my nose. Worked with a client last year, the leadership team, and they were really keen, and they asked what could they do straight away. So there were three things I suggested to them to do straight away. I said, I did the sushi train thing. I said, here's all these things you can do, but let's focus. Here's three that I think that can get stuff happening really quickly. One was having a Kanban board, so their whole team could see what they were up to. The second was for them to do stand-ups, and if the team was around, well and good, and if they wanted to hang around, listen, well and good. So that was another way of working out loud. And the other one was just overall visual management and inviting their team to put things up and call it an experience wall or call it whatever they wanted. They were very excited, and they did that straight away. And that was a few months ago, and I needed to touch base with them about something only a couple of weeks ago. And I got an email back with more photos of their boards, and so they were still doing it. So that was really good.
Yeah.
And they were very happy with how it was going. But before they did that, and at the end of my workshop with this group, I said to them, I end a lot of my workshops with a stand up. And I asked just to get used to the whole thing about standing up while you're having a meeting, and for them to see how much they can get done in 15 minutes, basically, or 10 minutes. And I say to them, I want to know one thing you're doing tomorrow and what might get in your way. So a little bit like a stand-up, but not exactly. And when we did this, someone said, I'm going to put up my visual management board tomorrow because I know exactly what I need to do now. I've got the tools. But the only thing that might get in the way is that the wall I want to use, the CEO is using it for something else. CEO's in that stand-up, right? So he's the blocker. And straight away, the CEO says, you can have it. And I said, how long would this have taken for you guys to get to this?
Absolutely.
You weren't having a stand-up and you weren't able to call it out and make it okay to call it out like that. Because not many formal meetings will have this thing like this is what's getting in my way, and just calling it out.
Yeah.
So they saw the power straight away. So I think that was a really good nudge for the mindset.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's kept going. Now that's like a little success story, if you like, where I've seen that aha moment happen, and I knew that there was going to be action after that because I could just see the lights really go on. So I guess that's just one example, but hopefully some tips there on maybe how to help people get it done.
Yeah, and I've been in a large property management organisation recently, and it's their building, their head office is pretty cool. Let's put it that way. But they never meant to be agile. But every wall is absolutely covered in variations of Kanban. Pretty much the core is the same, but they're slightly different. And that happened just because one department, one person came into the organization as a department lead and had done agile in a previous organization. So just used it in her team, didn't really talk about it because didn't need to. It was up there, it was visible, it was high traffic area. And people just sat up and took notice and then said, I think we should have a go at that. So the next one evolved and the next one evolved. And the manager I was talking to there said, we're probably not doing agile correctly because it's evolved. But hey, it's exciting and it's fast and you could feel the atmosphere in this organization. It was just amazing. So
that's good. And that really demonstrates, doesn't it, the power of contagion. You know, like just one person starting something and not getting hung up about what real agile looks like and just doing it, and then and no doubt they're seeing the benefits of that.
Absolutely.
And it sounds really good.
Yeah, it sort of comes back to the slogan, isn't it? Just do it.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
That's a good
slogan.
I think someone's done it already.
I think someone's taken that one. Yeah.
So, the great conversation. Now, you launched your book.
Oh,
just proving
that up. Yeah.
So you launched your book last year. So, Hacking for Agile Change, and I have done a book review, so you know what I think, and I'll put a link to that in the notes when we post this up. But tell us about the book. What were the drivers? What made you say, I am going to write this?
So, you know how I said earlier, you know, that I was doing things and then I started calling them hacks and then they became change hacks. And there are a lot of things I was doing over the years, not necessarily even maybe before I was even labeling them as agile, but they were things that were getting cut through. So, you know, a hack just being a clever way to get a shortcut or cut through. And a lot of people were saying you should put all these things together, you know, that you're starting to call hacks in a book. And I didn't really have time until I left NAB and was made redundant, and then which was a great opportunity to set up change hacks, because I always had this idea, but it was one of those situations where you need a nudge, you know, and I had the nudge, so that was good. And I found people were also craving definitions around what agile meant. So it seemed like I kind of thought I can have a little bit of a mashup here and put these things together, because a lot of these change hacks are in fact practices or behaviors that are very aligned with agile or can help people become agile. So I started to put it together, and then it's interesting because the triangular model, which is about mindset, behaviors and practices, started to emerge as I was putting the hacks together. And I was looking for some sort of structure around the book rather than just dump 50 hacks, you know, just have like maybe no, it didn't look a little chaotic. And that started to emerge. So then it was easy to align them to the model. So then that formed the book. And the interesting thing I've heard, people who've been to my workshops over the last couple of years, even more than a couple of years, have said that when they've read the book, they can actually see me delivering that in the workshop. So I must have captured my own voice in that book, and hopefully that's come across as well. Now, the book was initially written for change practitioners and change leaders, but a lot of the interest is now coming from senior execs who are saying to me, we want to go agile, but we don't really know where to start. But we think that the model looks like a framework for us that we can start. And when I say the model, I mean, you know, the mindset, behaviors and practices and how all those are required together to form organizational agility. So that's how it came about.
Yeah, it's a great book. It is a great book. I would certainly recommend it. It's a good read, and it's such a toolkit that people, once having read it, you know, can dip in and out, and some great ideas in there that you can just have a read, implement straight away. You know, it's not.
And thank you for letting me know that, Karen. I appreciate that, because it was designed with that in mind. It was designed to be you don't have to read it all in one hit. if you want to, you know, there might be a chapter there that's really relevant now. So hopefully you'll go back to it, or people go back to it when they need to. I sometimes go back to it because I know it's where all my little diagrams and stuff are, rather than going and looking for them at all these different spots. So yeah, that's probably selfish, but it's been helpful for me.
And I love the self-drawn diagrams in there. It makes it personal. I'm such a Visio and a PowerPoint person, and I stick all this stuff in what I write, and then I look at your book and I'm like, that is so cool. It's so personal. It's like, I'm just going to scribble this for you.
Here's a tip. I bought a program called Procreate for my new iPad, because I've got the Apple Pencil, and that made it a lot easier, because you can draw little diagrams in Procreate. You can tidy them up, and then you can import them as JPEG files. And then when you put them into PowerPoint, then you can put like the text and stuff around it. So it's another mashup that yeah.
That's your next book, mashups.
It could be hashtag mashup.
Yeah, I like it. Crashing things together.
Yeah.
I like it. So, Lena, where can they buy the book or get the book, and where can they find out more about Lena Ross?
So, the one-stop shop is probably my website, which is lenaross.com.au. So, it's not Change Hacks, although a lot of people think it is, but it is my name. And on there are links to, like, if they want to want to purchase the book. It's also on Amazon. It's ebook on Amazon and Kindle and Kobo. On my website too, I've got lots of things like infographics that I've done, white papers. Nearly everything I've put on LinkedIn is also a blog there. So my body of work is all pretty much there on the website.
Awesome. So that's Lena Ross.
If anyone's got any questions, they can always just drop me a line through the contact page, or connect with me on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And if they want to meet you and me, there's an event coming up soon.
How's that for timing? There is. So I'm looking forward to Convergence 2018. It's in our hometown of Melbourne this year. I know you've got a gig there. What's your talk on?
I'm talking about simplifying the roles in organizational change. So I've called it Game On.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I think we've overcomplicated everything. I think we've got too many moving parts. And if we are going to be truly agile, we need to make it lean and simple. So that's on the conference is on the 23rd and 24th of April at the RACV Club in Melbourne, as you said. So if you haven't got your ticket, get one now.
It's the hottest ticket in town, and I believe they've got a dedicated website called Convergence Australia.
Yeah, that's right. Just Google it, you'll find it, Convergence Australia.
Good. And I think I tweeted something the other day about the speakers they've got. And the topics they've got are so cool, and I like the fact that everyone who's speaking really is a divergent thinker like yourself, which I like. And so I've called it a convergence of the divergence.
Nice one. Yeah, the theme of the conference is whose change is it anyway, which I think is great, because I think that's provocative in itself, and I think that's why it's generated some thinking out there.
Yeah.
So, yes, check out lenaross.com, check out Convergence Australia, check out the book, Hacking for Agile Change. And Lena Ross, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise.
And,
nice to wrap up the week, Karen.
Absolutely.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah, so 31, Karen's Conversation 31 on Friday the 13th. Yeah. There you go. And that was unplanned.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly.
Thanks, Lena, and I'll talk to you soon.